Firefighters know that every second counts during the golden hour. That is why first responders trust AMKUS for simple, rugged, reliable rescue tools.
Hey, welcome back to another edition of Fire Engineering's Tactical Impact, show about tactics. I'm your host, Jim Silvernail. With me is my co-host, Chief Jason Hoevelmann. Jason, how are you this fantastic January day in Missouri?
One of the better ones we've had in a while. It's been a while since we've had snow and ice on the ground as long as we've had it.
The sun is shining and all is good. This is the show about tactics, and every month Jason and I try to highlight either an article in fire engineering or a class at FDIC, and this month is no different. This month we are highlighting an article out of our December edition. There you see Champ once again on the front cover, looking good as ever. But the article is entitled "A Different Kind of Chimney Fire." Jason and I thought it was very applicable for this time of year, especially being January. And I know in our area we get a lot of flute fires, but we wanted to talk about this, something different, something tactical. But I'm going to let Jason introduce our guest and kind of talk about the topic.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. It's always good to do these. These recordings seem to come around quicker and quicker every month or every 5 weeks, however soon it is. But you're right. This was a great article and really timely for the time of year and the season, obviously. And a lot of people like to sit next to these warming, crackling fires, the ones that still have wood, which are, in my opinion, the best ones you can have. But we were able to reach out to Jim Edelstein, and he was gracious enough to join us today. And just a little bit about him is that Jim is a 36-year law enforcement veteran, and we won't hold that against you, Jim. And a Fannin County, Georgia firefighter. He served in the NYPD ESU, and he can explain what that is, as well as PBSO's Emergency Field Force. He's a Florida and Georgia certified instructor, a past FDIC HOT instructor. He's also instructor for the Center for Domestic Preparedness, which he can share a little bit about that too. And Jim, thanks so much for joining us, and share a little bit about your background and maybe what those acronyms mean for those that aren't familiar with them, and some of your experiences. Then we'll dive into this article.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Just real quick for the parts of the country that aren't familiar. The NYPD has the Emergency Service Unit, and there's a saying, when people need help, they call a cop. When a cop needs help, he calls ESU. And New York is very unique in that the police also take a large hand in rescues, high-angle rescue, vehicle extrication. Years ago, the firemen were too busy to bother with that sort of thing, and over the years, they've got more involved in it, as the police did, and they basically share the task now. Sometimes in a perfect world, they get along at the scene great, and sometimes they don't. But New York is very unique in that they have police and firefighters responding to all different types of rescues. After 20 years in that department, I moved to Florida, and I started over with the sheriff's office there, and I became very involved with the emergency field force, where they do a lot of disorder control, deploying for like hurricane type situations, and they dabbled in rescues there. And most of the type of rescue that we were involved in actually was protester rescue or extrication. It's become a big thing in the country lately, where protesters want to get their word out, and they do that by chaining themselves up, by using different types of devices. And it's become the job of, in bigger cities, police. In smaller cities, they'll call on the fire department. But we have to extricate these people from these devices in a safe manner without hurting them. And there's a lot of legal and liability issues at hand. So a quick plug for the Center for Domestic Preparedness. You can go there and take classes and learn how to do this. Police or fire, it's open to any agency that might get involved. And these classes are 100% free. And a lot of departments will say, well, I don't have the money to fly a guy to Alabama. Well, guess what? The federal government will give you an airline ticket. They'll pay every meal. They'll feed you every meal, pay you for your travel to the airport. They'll put you up for free. And they have a whole catalog of classes. You can go to Anniston, Alabama, and become a hazmat technician in 1 week instead of doing it 1 day a week for, God knows how many months. A lot of classes. You can go to their website and look at their catalog. But protester extrication is one of the favorites of everybody that attends.
Yeah, very, very common stuff. That's a great topic to talk about another time too. That's really intriguing and interesting.
Sure. When I retired in Florida, I rolled into Georgia and got heavily involved very quickly with the Fannin County Fire Department. Fannin County is right on the edge of Tennessee and North Carolina. My other firefighter friends always find it funny. I'll tell them I jumped into a tanker one night to go to a call, and I ended up going to 2 mutual aid calls and back to our county. I was in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia fighting fire in 6 hours. I didn't get out of that truck for 6 hours, just rounding around. We have I want to say 25,000 residents, but a very thriving weekend cabin rental community here. So there's a lot of extra people on holidays and weekends. I got to say we have about 390 square miles, a lot of U.S. Forest Service, and a couple of small towns. So it's basically rural firefighting with a little bit of everything else mixed in.
Jim, were you impacted by the storms that hit Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee from the hurricane earlier in the fall?
That storm was actually originally heading right for where I live. My front door had a big target on it. And at the last minute, it diverted towards North Carolina. And we had howling winds for the whole night, but that was about all. But following that, the department we spent many, many trips with donated supplies and equipment and helping out with some search and rescue. We made a lot of trips to North Carolina. But we were spared, thankfully.
So how did you make the transition from NYPD into fire service? And what hot classes were you helping with at one point?
So I grew up in a volunteer firefighting family. My father was a firefighter on Long Island in the 50s and 60s, stayed in close contact. The New York City Police Department is full of Long Island and upstate New York volunteer firefighters, a lot of guys I work with. So I was always on the outer edge of it and always intended on joining a department where I lived, but never really got to it. But I was always on the outer edge, and I always had the rescue background from the emergency unit. So when I got the opportunity, when I moved to Georgia, I jumped on it. As far as FDIC, I was lucky enough to be invited to teach advanced vehicle extrication there.
Excellent.
And that's a great trip. Highly recommended to anybody that could get there. The equipment, the fellowship, the classes, you can't go wrong by spending a week at FDIC.
Definitely. And on that note, FDIC registration's open April 7th through 12th. Get down there. Nice segue there, Jim.
Yeah, very well done.
And you know what, too, especially if your department is thinking that you have a vehicle committee, you're going to spec out a new vehicle. You can't go wrong by looking at everything there to get ideas. The trip will pay for itself in meeting salespeople and companies and getting ideas to help you.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we know who you are. The article, like Chief Silvernail said, is a different kind of chimney fire. You got some great pictures and something that probably a lot of us take for granted that maybe don't do these as often, but they're certainly a risk in every community. From the December 2024 issue, just talk a little bit about what moved you to write the article, your experiences with chimney fires, and we'll get into some of the details.
When I got here, we were going out on 2 and 3 chimney fires a week. It was really getting crazy for a while. And the whole article idea started around one of the guys had the idea to use a pole saw on the interior tongue and groove of the cabins. You know, the extension ladders are too big to bring in. The roof ladder is too shaky. Nobody wanted to climb it with a chainsaw in their hand. So one of the guys had the idea for that tree pruning saw, and we tested it out, and they work great. And I was like, really? Nobody else is doing this. I've checked with firefighter friends in all 4 corners of the country. I haven't found anybody that's using them. So I thought I would expand on it, and that turned into writing an article. And it helps the pictures. I'm always the guy that's dumb enough to leave my phone in my turnout gear and try and grab some pictures, whether it be for our social media page or just for internal stuff. So I always had pictures, and the guys always like having a picture of themselves so they could show the wife what they did when they left at 3 a.m. to go to a fire. And it just kind of blossomed from there.
Talk about a little bit for those that maybe aren't as familiar, and maybe we'll move into this, but you know, the advantages and what you're actually using that saw for, as opposed to traditional methods that you might be stuck with if you don't get innovative like that.
Well, the type of chimney fires we have, the fire is not in the chimney itself. It's escaped through the metal pipe, and it's on the wooden frame surrounding the chimney. And the fire is either going up towards the roof and entering the house, or whether it goes down or right at eye level, is going into the house. And we know we have blackened tongue and groove. We have to open it up and find out what's in there. And these ceilings are generally high cathedral type ceilings. We were poking them with pike poles and smashing them with haligans and axes, climbing the other ladder with the chainsaw. And we just, the one guy said, there's got to be a better way. And he was a brand new guy, so I give him credit. There's got to be a better way. And he came up with a pole saw. A couple of other guys investigated which one we're going to buy. And we tried one of them out, and that has segued into, I'm not sure how many we have now, but we have a good handful on key vehicles.
Yeah. So in the article, there's a good, exactly what you're describing there, getting it out of there. So let's go into, for those that maybe aren't as familiar with chimney fires and fireboxes and the construction that involves them, and then we'll get into how you identify them and moving on. But talk a little bit about the construction challenges and what people might be able to expect to see, whether it's a lodge type or is vault to ceiling or just a residential home.
So in my background from up north, most of our chimneys were either the cement or clay going up, or your newer houses, or if you added a wood burning stove like I did in my house, we had the silver pipe just going up outside of the house, and it was not covered by anything. The trend now seems to be the pipe, the metal pipe, but they surround it with a framework and then put, whether it be rock or log siding or stone, they surround that framework with the other material to make it blend in. And we're not sure really what's going on, whether it be age, rust, shoddy construction, but we're getting a lot of fire escaping that metal pipe. And now it's trapped in between the framework, which is just 2x4s, and the exterior frame, which is usually plywood covered with stone or rock. And it could burn in there for hours until it finds its way into the house. We've had more than a handful where the people are like, yeah, I see a little bit of smoke outside my chimney. They think they have a regular chimney fire, but they don't even know that it's already up in the rafters. I remember there was, as a kid, it looked like a road flare. You'd throw that in the fireplace and it would suck out the oxygen, and dampen out the fire. I've never used one, but it seems like a good idea. People don't realize that that's not going to help you in this type of fire. The fire has escaped the actual chimney.
Yeah, it seems the materials, you'll have that pipe and it usually goes in some kind of a sleeve. And if they retrofit, they'll go in the old ceramic or clay or masonry type pipe that makes its own sleeve in doing that. But as materials get thinner, and also depending on codes and permit requirements, you can easily have somebody put the wrong gauge, thickness, and installation easily into those types of chases, and you get exactly what you're talking about.
We've seen them use pipe that's meant for interior, the much thinner pipe, not that triple layer inside. But we have a lot of them where they're using the right pipe, but just by age, it's either rusted out a little bit, or they didn't. The pipe comes in 3-foot sections. They didn't attach them properly, and over the years, shaking and wind has made a gap, and all it takes is a few sparks to escape through the gap.
Have you seen problems with inappropriate cleaning methods? We way back in the day when I was a volunteer, we witnessed somebody going around claiming to be a chimney sweep and using fairly destructive materials to knock creosote and different things out of flues. Have you had any problems with that or suspect that? And how would you look for that?
I have not noticed that. I think our bigger problem is not cleaning the chimneys at all. And so the other thing is, like, I used to clean my chimney 3 or 4 times a year. I heated my house with wood, and it was a pretty straight run. I can look up the chimney and see right up to the cap. But now they have a lot more high-tech methods. These guys come in with fiber optic cameras, and they could look in the whole inside. There was somebody on our social media page just mentioned the other day that they caved in and had a professional do it, and he noticed a crack in between. And I'm like, that next fire you made could have been it. You could have burned your house down. This guy saved your house.
Yeah, good chimney sweeps are invaluable, and the technology they use today is amazing, and they will save people from burning their houses down. And you've probably seen this. A lot of them get above the living space and have to get woke up because they don't even know a fire is happening above them.
Absolutely.
So go ahead,
Jay. What is the recommended? Is it yearly with the chimney sweep if you're burning wood all the time? I know that there's a recommendation out there.
It's very hard. They recommend yearly, but if you're burning every single day, then it should definitely be more than yearly. For the occasional ambiance fire, yearly will probably do the trick. And I recommend to people do it at the beginning of the season, because it might not even be a matter of anything more than a squirrel made a nest in there. So you want to clean that out before you start your first fire of the winter.
So what should be people looking for? You get called to a house for an odor. I know, when I was younger, sounds like a train in the house, real loud. What are some identifying factors that you can share with the people who may be responding to these calls to try to identify a chimney fire and if it's gotten out of the pipe?
Sometimes they're actually going to see smoke coming out of the walls. We've had flames coming outside where if you're in the house, you don't even know it, but somebody else had called in, said there are flames outside, smoke coming through the walls. We had a guy sitting in a hot tub. It was in a fireplace out on an outdoor deck. He's in the hot tub enjoying himself, and he realized in between the fireplace and the other end of the deck where the hot tub was, he saw smoke, and the rocks were getting red hot. The fascia of the chimney was getting red hot, and he's like, that doesn't look right. Shouldn't be. Anywhere there's heat or flames where there shouldn't be is usually pretty obvious. There was one last week where they swore they put the fire out at 10:30 at night, and then sometime during the middle of the night, they called in and saying there's smoke coming out of the exterior in between the rocks of the chimney.
You mentioned a little bit about the nesting and the different things, but what are some of the common things that you're seeing that are causing these chimney fires besides nests, things of that nature? What's one of the most common things that you're seeing that firefighters need to be looking for?
I think almost every one of ours is this fire escaping the pipe, and there's really not a lot you can look for ahead of time other than the chimney sweep. You're not going to know that this is going to happen. A lot of times in other areas, they're burning pine and building up creosote. We don't have that much because most of our hardwoods here are readily available. The chimneys are not getting full of soot, but it could happen. But you're really not going to have a big indicator ahead of time, other than things you catch on the inspection.
Are you using ticks frequently? And if so, where do you start? And what's your method for looking for fire or heat that way?
Every engine carries a tick plus a few more scattered around with the officers and whatnot. Yeah, we definitely are using a tick, but we're usually using them after we tear apart the chimney and find the fire and wet it down and all. Now we're using our tick to see how much expansion to the ceiling we have. So that picture there, you could easily see how blackened it is alongside the fireplace chimney. And we'll open all that up until we don't see black anymore. But we'll definitely get the tick in there, top to bottom, under the house, and make sure we have it all clear on the temperature. And we have areas where we can't get water in without, you don't want to tear a whole house apart if you don't have to. And there's places we just can't get water sometimes, so the tick becomes invaluable.
So you mentioned in the article we're seeing a lot of exterior fireplaces and chimneys before we get into how we attack them. But is there anything different or different kinds of risks? Obviously, it's outside, but how are you approaching those, and what's your recommendations as we see these? They're pretty prolific throughout the country as people start to redesign and reconsider how they do their outdoor living.
Well, I think the cabin owners feel safer when they say, well, we'll give them a fireplace, but we'll leave it outdoors to protect the home. But then what they do is they'll build a beautiful fireplace on the deck and have it be part of a roof, and the roof is connected to the house. So it'll be a total outdoor living space with a beautiful fireplace, and that chimney fire will escape into the, whether it be a porch or a totally detached, but it'll hit that roof and head for the house. We've had more than one or two of them. Here's a great example here. That's an outdoor deck with a fireplace, and it's connected to the house.
Now, do they usually cover those joists up? Or they cover that with some type of wainscoting or ceiling material of some sort? What's popular in your area?
Tongue and groove.
Okay.
Everything is tongue and groove. It's easy to get, cheap to get, easy to work with. I don't blame anybody. I don't know if you can see behind me, my house is full of it. Yeah, very few of those will be left exposed, because then outdoor it becomes a place for bees and hornets and mice and whatever critters.
Right. So you mentioned a little bit ago about the red sticks that look like dynamite or flares, the old Chimflex sticks that you would light and throw down. Talk a little bit, take us into the best approaches for attacking these fires and the multiple ways that you can do it. Maybe thinking about ventilation, what do you do with the box, things of that nature.
The first thing we do is try and get into the area surrounding the chimney. And if it's rock, the K-12s work, but they're pretty slow moving on jagged rock. It really comes down to a sledgehammer and Halligan and pickaxes to open up the rock. Once we get the rock open, if we have to, we can, there you go. If we have to, we could sawzall into the wood frame to get a look in there. Sometimes we're attacking it from the roof up by the chimney cap, and sometimes from down low just to get your first peek into what we have. And once you get in there, you'll know pretty quickly the sparks and burnt up embers will be falling down on you, or you'll see that it's right, at eye level where you opened it up. But you have to get into that. And assuming, so where that guy was just cutting, assuming he finds fire right there, it's probably going to be on the front part too. So we're going to want to open it up interior in the house also. And again, that, you try your best to save property, but it means taking everything off their mantle. And these mantles are usually hung up with really big lag bolts. We're going to end up having to cut those off. And it's going to take an attack line in the house and outside the house to douse that. And you can see some of these houses are beautiful. We had one that was in a house that was on an issue of Better Home and Garden. Wow, and it just killed me, the tearing, the damage we did to that house. But we did save his house, though.
Jason, did you guys ever put on your truck a winter pack, such as a bucket, a pail, and the bombs? Did you guys ever have you take the dry chem bombs and try to throw them down the chimney?
Oh yeah, we had all that.
Because the thought was, to use less water so you didn't crack that. If it was like a masonry inset. But I mean, if you got a fire in there, you got to get it out somehow. I mean, what have you guys ever heard that before? Is like they'll try the bomb first before
crack the water.
Yeah.
But again, that probably would not work in the scenario that we're getting, where the fire has escaped the actual chimney. You're not going to get to all those hidden spaces. The Chimney Association also recommends, if you have a fire and you get it put out, you still need an inspection, because you probably cracked that masonry chimney if that's the type you're using.
So with the fire in the box, I know, like, if you keep it, a lot of the discussion you've got here, you talk about, different approaches, and you talked about the saw. What kind of roof work are you doing on these fires that you found different approaches and challenges to?
Yeah, some of them we have to get up there if we can. I think you have a picture. We did a trench cut on an outdoor fireplace, and we probably saved the house on that one. This fire was racing in the roof towards the house from the outdoor fireplace, and it had gone, I want to say, at least 6 feet from the fireplace towards the house. They did a trench cut, opened it up, and then worked from the roof to expose everything and get water down from the top. Some of them, it's impossible. Don't forget, we're in the mountains. Every one of these rental cabins is built on a cliff, and we have trouble getting a ladder up. You're at ground level in the front of the house, and the back is a 200-foot drop off. I don't know how they get construction material in there, but they do it. Yeah, there's our trench cut. The guys were pretty proud of that one, because it was a really nice cut and it was a great stop on the fire. But that ladder, the bottom of that ladder, is in the driveway. It was just positioned great for us to get up there. If it was in the back of the house, it would have been almost impossible.
It looks like a pretty decent peak as well.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and you can see how the guys are sitting on the peak. I tell you, I think I was just getting over COVID at that fire. I didn't climb that ladder. I had wanted nothing to do with it.
So the fires that are getting out of the chimney, you're opening up, you're getting water. What about the fires that, like a flue fire, that basically happens before it gets out? How many of those are you responding to, and what tactics are you using that may be a little bit different?
Very few. We haven't had very many of them. We do not carry those road flare things. That type of fire, a booster line is generally going to do the trick. We've had only a few, but if we can get into the fireplace and get past the damper and get some water in there, it's pretty much out. But we have not had a raging one. One good thing is a lot of these rental cabins that are managed by a rental company, they'll require an inspection every year. So at least they're getting the creosote and the junk outside of the chimney. So if the fire is going to get caught in there, they catch it early by inspection, but they don't always catch whatever causes the fire to get out of the interior of the chimney.
I know you mentioned the types of homes that these are. They're beautiful, huge, open space lodges and cabins that are not inexpensive. What kind of approaches have you guys taken and methods that you've used for maybe before you start opening up any kind of protection or overhaul and considerations for tarps, or what kind of practices, or do you use anything, you're just thrown to the fire and making sure you get it taken care of?
It depends on the circumstances, but we'll attempt to push furniture back and clear the mantle of anything. We had recently, I had one, we had a stuffed turkey that somebody was obviously very proud of, and I was laughing watching the guy trying to walk down the hall carrying this giant turkey that was all, and then he realized there was all pipes inside of it holding it together. And, there's always the moose head up there. Yeah, if there's time, we'll attempt to mitigate the damage, but there's not always that time available when you have to get to the fire. But the type of homes these generally are, they usually have a big open living room. If we can, we'll push things back. A lot of the rental people too. They usually just got there that day and now they're displaced. They have nowhere to go. If these people go through a rental company, they'll usually be pretty good about finding them another one to go to that night. If it's a rental property, they usually fairly sparsely furnished. There aren't a lot of personal belongings, but we also have this happens in full-time residents also. So it runs the gamut. It could be anything from a totally cluttered living room to something with not much in it. But yeah, we definitely will, if we have time and we can, we'll put down the tarps and try and keep the mess to a minimum.
So most of these pictures you show are fireplaces on exterior walls, which lend themselves a little bit easier for full access. How many of these kinds of fires, or any, have you had where they've been in the middle of the footprint of the home, or maybe multiple levels or duplicate sides? And does that present any different kinds of challenges?
I have not been to any fires like that. The only one I've seen, I was at the house on a different type of call, and they had a horribly installed stove in the middle of the room. I mean, it looked nice, but they had nothing under the stove to protect the wooden floor. The chimney was very shaky, going straight up through the roof. We advised them to put this out of service until it gets inspected by a good sweep, because I knew nobody would say this is good to use. But that was the only one where I had it anywhere other than an exterior wall or a good solid rock one, maybe a two-sided one sharing two rooms, like a living room and a bedroom. But nothing right in the middle of the floor other than that one.
Yeah, I'd be curious, because I know like the outside walls, you've got insulation, which is going to help prevent drop down if you've got a basement level or lower level or second floor in a master suite or something. But the ones I've seen in the middle, I'd be curious to know. I would think that maybe there's not that kind of insulation in the studded part of those walls that could create almost an approach like a balloon frame house, right? You'd have to go at every level to see if you had any fall down in those types of situations.
But we don't get them, but on a house without a basement built on a slab, we found where the fireplace actually burned right through the bottom and then started traveling along the rafters, and we caught it all the way into the next room almost.
Wow.
Crawling under the house. It was blackening the floor joists all the way into the next room.
I enjoyed one of the tactics that you had, and you have a video which I'd like to put up here, is that when that fire gets throughout that chimney, to pull the chimney off the house. You mind if I show that video real quick?
So we just knew that there was fire in there. And if you look at the picture, you do not see anything. But we could see it up close, and I believe the ticks were identifying it. And we're like, this has to come down. We have no access to it. Don't forget, most of these chimneys are built exterior to the home. They're not integrated into the engineering of the house. They're not load bearing or anything. So we don't do it very often, but we made the call. We got to rip the chimney down. So look when you look at the video when it comes down, how much fire comes out.
I lied.
Wow.
That's impressive.
That's a lot of fire.
There was, and we couldn't get to it any other way with the picture of the roof and whatever else was going on. So what we did in this case, and I'm a winch guy. I love working with winches. We took the deputy chief's truck, ran his winch cable out, threw a tow strap around the chimney. Somebody with a ladder got up as high as they could, cinched up the tow strap on it, hooked it to the winch, pulled it down. When I was on the scene, we did a few like that. Then we had another one. We couldn't get a truck in good position. We used to come along to a tree and it worked just as well. Again, you hate to do that kind of damage to somebody's home, but you can see how much fire was in there. The fire was quite a bit in the top of that.
Yeah, you solved the problem. You removed it. You isolated it.
Yep, exactly, because it had not entered the house yet, but it was going to shortly. And yeah, it definitely solved the problem, and it looks like a lot of damage, but it certainly is better than your home burning down.
Was that a log home?
A lot of the homes are mistaken for log homes. I believe that was a log-sided home.
Okay.
They just put what looks like logs, but it's log siding. And then even the bulk of the log homes aren't true log homes. There'll be logs on the first level, and then they go to frame built on the second level because it's too hard and expensive to build a true log home on every floor. So it'll be log on the main floor, switching over to log face over a stick.
I think I've got a picture of your cutout from one of the logs. That's a log? Is that a true log or is that siding?
That is true log, and that's the house that was on Better Home and Garden. And we knew we had fire in between the masonry and the logs, and we couldn't get to it. We were pouring water from the roof down next to the chimney, and water wasn't coming out at the bottom. It was getting redirected elsewhere. We took chainsaws to it, and believe me, we hated to, and we were also worried about structural damage. That was done with a chainsaw, but the logs were so big and tight. After the chainsaw, we hit it with Halligans, and we couldn't budge them. We ended up taking a hearse tool and getting a little picking and pick, just like a car door. Got a purchase point, and we finally were able to move one over enough to pop it out. They were very tight. Yeah, that's the one that they ended up turning it into a two-sided chimney. They reinforced the sides and made that an exterior chimney also when they went back and cleaned it up. It was a beautiful house. You hate to see anything happen to something like that.
Wow. Well, good stuff. Anything you want to add? I think it was a great, explanation of the challenges and ways to deal with these things, especially for wintertime. And again, this is the December 2024 fire engineering issue. Look at that.
That's a good conclusion right there. Look at that.
Beautiful house. Yeah, the pole saws, like I said, that was the beginning of the reason for this. They've been working great to get through that tongue and groove. We didn't talk about the ladders also. We've been using those Little Giant style ladders. They've been a great help instead of dragging a ladder into the house.
Oh, yeah.
We did a little bit of research on these pole saws, and I think in the end, we already had some Milwaukee we got Milwaukee fans and some Milwaukee lighting, and we said we're going to stick with the same batteries. So we stuck with the Milwaukee system, and we couldn't be happier with their pole saw. Worked really well. We haven't had an issue with them.
I know that one of the big things for us is complacency. Once again, avoiding the complacency issue. We'll get these flue fires that come in at a lower response. What is it, 2 engines and possibly a ladder if it's available and a chief. And you just expect, hey, hopefully it's just a closed damper. But when you get there and you're that first 2 company and you round the corner and you've got that hellacious amount of smoke coming out of the eaves and all that, then it's time to immediately switch gears, right? I mean, that attic fire is just one of those fires that you have to be on the ball. You can't be complacent. You got to have your gear on, your mask, because you got to go to work now. Because if you're not in that attic with the hose line, you're going to lose that, because that's a lumber yard. And that's one of the things we try to reinforce is that don't go into the mindset that this is just another chimney fire. Go into the mindset that this could be an attic fire, because if they called us for the reason they did, then there is possibly a bigger problem than just a closed damper.
Right.
Yeah, and this is a combination department. We don't have that 2-engine and a ladder truck advantage. We on a perfect day, we know we have apparatus coming, and we have a pretty good volunteer contingent that is going to show up, but they may trickle in slowly. And also, we joke around with the recruits that we don't do cardio to help us fight fires. We need to do cardio just to walk up the driveway, because there's not enough room to park. Our volunteers respond by POV. There's not enough room for all their cars in the driveway. Generally, we're lucky to get an engine up the driveway. And every driveway is 1/10 of a mile, and it's uphill. So you got to park at the bottom of the hill and walk up with your SCBA and whatever else you're carrying. But one other point too with these is we found out the hard way is you got to keep an eye on them for a rekindle. Once we're sure we have it out, we'll generally try and have a reinspection an hour later. If we're all ready to leave the scene, we'll assign somebody to go back and keep an eye on it for a while, because nobody wants a rekindle.
I think these were good takeaways today, Jason. Great job finding this article in December's. Jim, great job writing this article. I think it's something that's very applicable, especially in these next couple months coming up. I know that we'll be responding to a bunch of flue fires and hopefully not attic fires, but you know how that goes. Any final takeaways?
No, I'm really glad you guys had me here, and I hope we got a little information out to people that look at it.
Definitely. Great job. And thanks so much for taking your time out and talking with us today and sharing your experiences for people. And because everybody throughout the country has got different challenges with all of these different things, and those perspectives are important to them. So they can probably take this and use it as a little training nugget.
I'm happy to be here.
All right. Another great episode. Jason, why don't you take us home?
So as always, thanks for tuning in. If you have ideas or thoughts on different tactical considerations that we can talk about, let us know. Also, FDIC is not that far away, just a few months. Could be here before you know it. Registration's open April 7th through 12th in Indianapolis. As always, you can register online, click all the links. You can see all the speakers, all the class opportunities, hot workshops. The exposition hall obviously is incredible. Great opening ceremony this year with Champo, and everybody else is going to be on the big stage. And if you're there and you see Jim and I, make sure you say hello. Only if you like the show, though.
And bringing up Champo is a great segment into this. January is Cancer Awareness Month. And I know last episode we put this on here, but we're going to do it again because we feel it's that important. Get out there and register. Get on the this firefighter registry for cancer. And it's not the CIA taking your information. I know how we can have conspiracy theories, but this is for us. This is so we can detect and we can try to cure or possibly keep somebody from getting cancer in our business. And that alone is worth my information. I have no problem giving my information if that's what's going to happen. Jason, I know you feel the exact same way. So get out there and make this happen.
This is especially important for you volunteers and combination members because when you go to the doctor and you have to fill out your occupation, so many volunteers don't include that they're a volunteer firefighter. And you need to make sure that if, God forbid, you ever do test for any kind of cancer or you register or do anything that's cancer related, make sure that those records indicate your years of service as a volunteer firefighter.
All right. Before we go, I'm going to give one plug. Jason and I will be teaching tactical impact. February, is it the 6th? I can't remember the exact date.
February 8 and 9.
I was off. February 8th, we will be in Columbia, Missouri, teaching tactical impact at Missouri Winter Fire School by MUFRTI. If you're in Missouri or close or going, please come by and see us. If not, catch us in the bar at night. I'm sure we'll buy you a beer. Jason will.
Jim will.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in once again for another great Tactical Impact. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Firefighters know that every second counts during the golden hour. That is why first responders trust AMKUS for simple, rugged, reliable rescue tools.